perhaps speak to what companies do wrong when it comes to lifecycle marketing? Like, where do you see like the biggest gaps usually? If you were to look back, out of all of the people that you worked with, all of the books that you may have read, all of the experience that you've had, who or what have you learned the most from?
So once you have become a part of a brand as an identity, it's so difficult for you to depart from that. And that is a huge lesson for retention. You change their identity and who they see themselves as, instead of just trying to push another 30 servings of a product. It's a whole different mindset, and it goes beyond email. Because when it comes to retention, things will not always be smooth.
Hey guys, and welcome to the CEO After Dark show. I have with me the most successful, the greatest and best Greek retention marketer in the world, Thomas Lalas, the head of retention for Everyday Dose. Tommy, thank you for joining me.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure. Looking forward to this.
How are you doing today, Malaka?
I'm not going to repeat that word. It's quite famous. I'm doing really well. I'm tired. I mean, it's
in our
really
culture, it means
dark.
good luck.
I mean, it's after dark for us, right? Literally right now, since we're both in Greece and it's 8 p.m. here as the time of recording this. So yeah, it's doing great. I mean, when you do something you love, it's what Steve Jobs says. It doesn't feel like work.
That's nice. That's nice. So you have impressed me by far the most out of everybody else that I've spoken to in this space, at least in recent memory. And the purpose I have today is to like try and figure out what got you to where you are today. Like, how did you start and how did you arrive at the place you are today? So my first question is, like, why retention of all things? Like, out of everything in marketing, why focus on that?
Yeah, first of all, humbled. Thank you. I mean, you don't know if you're doing well till somebody else says, I'm impressed by what you do, or I really look forward to working with you, or, tell me more about. You don't know till like there are so many brilliant people all over the world, and I'm impressed by other people as well, but you never know your space in the world, your position, your place, unless somebody else compares you with their experience, right? So thank you so much for asking. Now, when it comes to retention, it's a lesson from my personal experience. Believe it or not, in the past, before being a professional marketer, I was actually an ex-military. I used to work for NATO. I'm an ex-academic. I was teaching at 3 universities. I was teaching business to artists. And also, I'm an ex-AI startup founder back when AI wasn't cool and wasn't developed, and it was really underfunded.
Well,
and that failed because I couldn't secure funding. But the lessons from the startup taught me that retention is very important, because the startup seemingly was doing great because of acquisition, but the people that that work with us didn't come back to buy again. And although everything looked profitable initially, I couldn't get funding. It was so hard, and I realized that because we don't have recurring revenue, we're a very risky investment, and we died because of this. And in order for me to cut my losses and reduce my debt, because I had a pretty significant debt at that time because of the startup, I folded the startup and I started offering my experiences, my skill sets as a service. And that's what drew me to retention. Initially through email marketing, I had to build my credibility up as a freelance professional after being an offer owner and a teacher and a military policeman. I had to become now a marketer by profession. So I worked my way up again, because I had all the experience of more than 10 years at that time. Now it's 15 years of experience. It was quite easy for me to, get a win after a win after a win, and eventually, increase my rank, let's say, in the ecosystem to where I am now. So it was not really something that I would advise a 25-year-old to do. It was because of my 10 years of experience before that moment that taught me the good and the ugly of the business and marketing, that eventually helped me acquire a lot of wins fast and, seemingly become like a fast growing marketer.
For me, what has been quite interesting, by the way, I realized when we first connected how small the world is, because like people I know you, and you know people that I know of. So like it's very strange how it's a global ecosystem, but like everybody kind of knows everybody. But what has stood out to me is that the way people, I haven't worked with you personally, at least as of today, but what I've heard people say is that you like doing things your way. I heard this from some of the technology partners that you guys are working with in everyday dose, and they said this in the best possible of ways, not like in a bad way that like you are stubborn or anything. It's just that you have like a system or like a method to what you do that is kind of unique or kind of yours. It's like Thomas Lalas TM, like that sort of thing. It's what makes you you. Like why does it work so well? Like what is different about it? I guess is my question. And by the way, when I say, just to substantiate what I said, because I think it's important, I don't give praise lightly. When because I got curious, everybody was telling me all of those things, and I started like digging into what you guys do, and I was unable to find a single mistake. Typically, you will kind of like sign up for emails and like see, okay, like they are not doing this so well, or like the pop-up has this. But with you guys, I couldn't find a single mistake. So that's why I say that it's really impressive. And I'm sure the back end is even more impressive than what I'm seeing from externally.
Yeah, it's a great point. With experience and usually out of necessity, eventually you realize that you can't just create new solutions for everyone you're working with. And you don't really need new solutions. What I realized is that you need systems, because the problems that brands face, right now I specialize in 8, 9+ figure brands. So I'm not working with brands that still haven't unlocked acquisition. But when I work with them, I realize that there is a set of problems that appear again and again. And it would make no sense for me to try again from scratch with every new client. So I encoded everything that I learned up to that point into a system, and I started implementing it with every client that I had. And eventually I saw that every time I'm getting better results than what was before, and consistent results. So I kind of encoded my own learnings that are very, very individual, um, into a system that is actually been proven to be scalable and replicable. Now, yeah, they said I do things my way. I mean, I didn't say that I'm also a musician and a storyteller. So as an artist, I don't really like the ordinary. I don't see the ordinary in the world. I see the extraordinary. I see the different. I see the impressive, the magical. And this is reflected in my work. So every time I try to innovate, not out of the hustle culture bro kind of innovation and thing like a buzzword, it's out of necessity again that I need to create something new to express myself and to find solutions in a way that has been done before, because it just makes me happy, and that's the way that I am. And
Mhm.
because of that, I started testing things, and once they worked, I started scaling them, and then I made them a part of my system. And that's why I started looking for solutions, third party services that can fit into what I've already built. And maybe sometimes the way they fit in, it's unconventional because they're not meant to be used that way. But because it serves my system, I just use
Yeah.
it. And if it doesn't work, then I discard them and I use something else, right? So that might be something that is unconventional and my way. But also, I'm headstrong. Yeah, I can be quite selfish in the way that I approach business, meaning that when I know something works, and I know that it might take some time even for a new thing to work, I am very protective of my work, and I don't allow even some people that might own the business to touch it till I prove my point or disprove my point. So I know I can be very protective of my work
Mhm.
because some things need time to work, and you can't discover something new unless you give it enough time to mature. So yeah, it's not what most people will do, and it has worked well for me so far. So that's why I keep doing it.
You didn't really tell me. what is it about the way you work and about the system that you've built that like actually makes it different? And I can appreciate that perhaps you don't want to like share the secrets, right? But could you perhaps answer it or address it in kind of the opposite way? Could you perhaps speak to what companies do wrong when it comes to lifecycle marketing? Like, where do you see like the biggest gaps usually?
Gotcha, for sure. I mean, that's a very precise observation. I didn't share the details because it doesn't make sense for me to share my personal findings, with everybody else. It's my personal experience, and it's a system that I've encoding for myself, so I'm quite protective of it. That's correct. But what I can share is that uh, when I see online other marketers that might be otherwise experts in what they do, and they might have a respectable position in the ecosystem, when I see marketers share that the way to get a customer to buy again is to share to send an email about how the product works and ask for a testimonial and then offer a discount and some really beginner level stuff that everybody seems to be repeating again and again, it kind of makes me laugh that we're kind of stuck in a vacuum of solutions that can be found in the first Google, page of Google, right? It's the same emails again and again, and there's no innovation. There's nothing that actually works from a deep psychological level, and it's all the same. Like send an email, show how the product works, and show testimonial, etc. For me, I do none of that because I believe they just don't really work, and it's just that people repeat them enough times and then they stop believing that that's the way to run retention marketing. Taking a step back, retention marketing is all about getting the customer to buy again and buy more often and pay more. Retention marketing is the medium towards increasing LTV. So if your goal is to increase LTV, you have to start from there. Where am I now? Where do I want to go? And how do I get there? So it's hard for me to believe that sending an email showing how the product works and that's it will actually get you there. It's hard for me to believe that even 10 emails that most people say, yeah, the post-purchase flow needs to have 10 emails. It's hard for me to believe that this will increase LTV. This is not even a journey, a multi-month journey that will get people to spend more and accustomed to the product and using the product all the time and becoming fans of it, maybe even creating a cult-like following. 10 emails is not the answer. So every time I just see that, okay, their ultimate retention guide that they collaborated on is just sending these 10 emails, for me, it's laughable. For me, it's just
Yeah.
good. Let this become the norm. Let everybody use that checklist so I can bring way better results for my clients. And these people will just have a cookie cutter approach that simply doesn't work. So overall, it's not these 10 emails or 5 emails that everybody suggests post-purchase. It's something that needs to make people, like you more, use you more, open the wallets more for more months, and it's much more than just 10 emails. So what I've created is a multi-month experience, and it's based on iteration and a lot of different factors, and it's like a choose your own adventure game. There is no way somebody can subscribe to one of the brands that I'm working with, receive the emails, and then be like, yeah, I've decoded it. Because there are multiple flows interconnected based on what you've done. If you respond to a survey differently, you will receive something else. If you say you're here for this reason, you will receive something else. If we see that you have depleted the product faster than usual, you will get something else. So it's created in a dynamic way that will adjust based on your journey. And it's not just for a month, but multiple months, right? And if we see that you have the propensity to stay committed for longer, we give you a better discount and we lock you in for a longer period of time. But if we see based on predictive analytics that you have all the signals that lead to churn, then we're going to show you something in advance before you churn so we can save you. So it's so different than just send these 10 emails. Do you understand like the comparison between this and that? It's like Like my background is kind of light and you have a dark background. That's the difference between these two approaches, day and night. So that's why I'm quite protective of this, and
No,
I
I,
want this
I
to.
totally, I totally understand what you're saying, and like for what it is worth, I agree with you. And we do try as an agency, like in Yocto, we do try to have like this more thoughtful, long-term approach when it comes to what we do. But I want to play devil's advocate here and challenge you, not because I believe it, but because other people say it a lot, that all of this flow stuff, all of those complicated journeys and stuff, it's kind of like a waste of time because as long as you're sending campaigns regularly, as long as you stay top of mind, then when the user has a need, they will remember to purchase. There's this story floating around on social. A lot of people say that. I personally think it's incorrect. But what would you say to that? I can see you laughing. That's funny.
I will say, good. Keep believing that. That's fine. I mean, we're colleagues, but at the same time, we're competing for a finite number of business. And the more higher up you are in the level of business you're looking for, the less competition you need, because there are fewer and fewer brands of that level that you can work with. So yeah, I mean, if this is what they believe, fine, keep believing that. And it's not in an arrogant way. It's like I'm not going to try to convince everyone or teach everyone. Like right now, me teaching other agencies how to do their business is not my business. I don't care how they do business. I
Yeah.
just want benchmark numbers and angles of how others run the business so I can see how I can position myself against everything else that is out there. But I don't care to help them at the moment, not because I'm a bad guy or I don't care about the ecosystem, but because I want to make sure, first of all, I can keep having a steady flow of clients for myself. It's a survival thing. It's personal thriving before the ecosystem thrives, kind of thing. I want my family to have bread on the table. I'm a family man with a child and a second one coming soon, right? I want to make sure my family comes first before another colleague online that I've never talked with, right? So yeah, cool.
No, I
If
get
they
it.
believe that, I'm against it. I don't believe this is true. I mean, in fact, I know it's not true for the kind of business that I'm running, but it's fine. It could be true for smaller businesses. I don't know. I don't know. I'm focusing on CPG businesses that you eat or consume or drink or use regularly. Usually, um, you have to replenish every month, right? That kind of thing. And it's a subscription first business, meaning my goal is not to get you to buy again. My goal is to get you to not cancel your subscription. So what you're saying could actually be
Hmm.
true for some businesses, right? But it's definitely not true for me.
Hmm. Hmm. I want to stay on what you said. By the way, we've discussed this like off the record, but I do want to like dig a little bit deeper there. You've told me that you want to launch like your own brand, the Art of Ecom, correct? So when you're thinking about the Art of Ecom, like how do you have it in your mind? Like what's the story behind it? And I want to like also relate this to what you just said, that I don't necessarily care about educating the ecosystem, because a lot of people typically what they do, people like yourself, I mean, like highly successful like operators, they say, okay, I have this success story. I start creating content around it. I share what I know. I attract attention. I convert clients. I make money. But what's your play? Like, how do you think of doing this?
I will say, honestly, I don't have a concrete answer because I'm still not in the business of freelancing. I'm full time with my current company and I'm dedicated there. Uh, I might have I've had a lot of opportunities to consult clients. So far, I've been turning them down. Now I'll be open to getting a few more consulting clients under my belt. But once the time is right for me to make the art of ecom into my personal brand, I will not play the content game. I believe you told me on a phone call, Malaka, you need to make content. You need to share what you know. And if you remember what I said is actually, I don't want to do that. I believe content is a commodity. It's attracting a lot of people. It's increasing visibility and you stay top of mind, but also it makes you very accessible. And I believe that most people can charge what they charge and can't go higher than that is because they've become a commodity. But they're not something unique that others will use, and they will use them as a competitive advantage. So the way that I see myself is that working with me is a competitive advantage, and other people not knowing about me is actually good for your business if you work with me. So that's the way that I want to approach it philosophically. I have a background in the luxury industry. I was very privileged to have a mentor early stage that built the first luxury olive oil in the world when Harrods in London didn't have olive oils there. His bottle was put next to wine, next to expensive wine. It was the first luxury olive oil in the world. And he was my early stage
Okay.
mentor. You know, he really liked my way of thinking. He embraced me and he taught me a lot of things about the luxury industry. I read a lot of books. And ever since, I've been seeing myself as a premium product, as something that is actually scarce, that not everybody can hire right away or have access to at any time of the day, because then you become a commodity. And
Mhm.
I'm just going to repeat for anyone that is interested listening to this. In our conversation, we talked about agencies potentially, being one of these commodities. They can't charge way more just because there is another agency that can do the same thing, nothing different. Only differentiating factor is the price. Well, for me, you have a system that only you use. I will work with very few companies in the future. I will handpick them and they will handpick me. And if we're a good match, actually that's going to be their competitive advantage, because a part of my service and my USP is that no other competitor can access what they will access. So they will only have it, they're going to pay for it, but that's going to be very unique for them, a system that will give them an advantage and eventually will help them win over the competition. So that's the way that I approach the brand that I've silently launched, but it's going to be launched officially once I depart from Everyday Dose as a full time only client.
If you were to look back, out of all of the people that you worked with, all of the books that you may have read, all of the experience that you've had, who or what have you learned the most from?
Only one person or one book? I mean, this is impossible. Um, I will mention two people that I work with that I admire, I respect greatly. Um, and yeah, so one is the person that, well, actually, they're both the owners of the two agencies I've ever worked with. One is Abhishek Patra that runs Zoronto. That was my first agency when I uh, first made myself available as a freelancer. Great leader, great guy. So I learned a lot about how agencies work, basically, and I realized that I could offer much more than what they were offering. So I just left the agency at that time to carve my own path. The second person is Jordan Menard, um, amazing guy. We used to work together at Motif Digital. That was my second agency and probably the last agency I'll ever work with. I don't plan to join another agency in the future. But he's a beast. He's a person that I learned so much from. I respect 110%. And he launched his own brand. And he's the person where you say, yeah, if this person doesn't succeed, I don't know who else will. He's got success written all over him. And once you mingle with successful people that you have personal relationships with, you learn so much. You grow yourself just by osmosis, just by being around them. So in terms of people, yeah, I would say these two people. In terms of books, I know some people might like they don't like this book. I don't know why, but personally for me, reading breakthrough advertising and understanding unique
Mm.
mechanisms, that was a light bulb moment. Understanding. I mean, if anyone opens the first 30 pages of the book, will already know what I'm about to say. but understanding that you don't create needs, you just ride the wave of needs. You can't manufacture a need from scratch. When the timing is right, you just need to be there, and you just need to tap into existing needs and wants of people. It's very powerful, and I leveled up once I realized that simple idea. Before I was trying to be too persuasive in ways that other people were doing, copying their words, etc., swipe files, copy that is modeled after existing copy. Once I realized that this is just wrong as an approach, I opened up myself to new levels of success. But also the same thing happened with the way that I package myself up. Once you know that you can package yourself as a unique system, and ideally, if you are indeed a unique system, not just for the display, but in essence, then you're great. People will want to work with you for the system, so acquisition is done. And if you work and bring results and you have great interpersonal relationships, then retention is also unlocked. And I think this doesn't just go about working with clients, but also goes about customers, of a brand. They come in for whatever reason, something they want to experience for themselves. They get attracted by a product. Maybe they have a need and they want to solve this. And then eventually you mesmerize them. You bring them in your world, and now they can't see themselves not being a part of this world that you've created for them, which your product is a part of, or your suite of products is a part of. And you get easily to upsell and cross-sell the products because now they're a part of an ecosystem, and their whole identity is tied to that ecosystem, that community, that lifestyle that the products represent, and the ideal future versions of themselves that they can acquire by using your products religiously. So that's why they don't want to leave the brand. Their identity is at stake. Like when you're part of a cult, of an actual cult, you don't want to leave because you are connected with the people in the cult. And once you go, you lose a part of yourself. You leave a part of yourself behind. And it's so hard for us to redefine ourselves. We want to feel safe that we know who we are. So once you have become a part of a brand as an identity, it's so difficult for you to depart from that. And that is a huge lesson for retention. You change their identity and who they see themselves as, instead of just trying to push another 30 servings of a product. It's a whole different mindset, and it goes beyond email. Right? And I'll keep talking now just because it's connected and I find it interesting, and I hope the listeners will also find it interesting, and you as well. Once
What I
you
find
bring
interesting, what I find interesting in what you're saying is that it feels to me like you approach this like very much from a messaging standpoint, like a content standpoint. And you've read classic direct response books like Breakthrough, like which I also like, by the way. It's a great book. So if you were to, by the way, I know what the answer is, but I just wanna like make it shared by others as well. If you were to say like what matters more when it comes to content results, is it like the design or is it the message? Which has more impact on performance?
Well, actually, I might say something you don't expect. I would say both. Both. I know where your question is coming from. We had this discussion before, but the design is very important because it lets people skim the content. And I'm not even talking about design itself as a visual design, but the way that the lines on a text-based email are laid out. It needs to be skimmable.
Yeah.
Send everything as a huge chunk of text. Nobody's going to read it. Break the text and make it interesting. Add some ellipses, instead of saying everything in one line, say so, and then continue the rest. Just be playful. The same content will have a much bigger effect. But content is always the most important thing that gets people to take action. Obviously, it's It's what will convince
I
people to
really
do more.
want this podcast to go live because again, I'm seeing so many people saying, "Oh, like content does not matter, like it's like almost irrelevant. People either want to buy or they don't want to buy, and you just need to be sending them messages, and then if they're in the market, they're going to buy, and if not, they're not going to buy." And this is so naive because like you can actually measure this. That's
Yeah.
what testing is for. Like you can actually measure and see that there's an impact, and yet somehow this is somehow becoming popular on social, which is again, as you said, maybe it's a good thing, not a bad thing, because that means more work for you and me, right? So there's
Yeah, I
that.
mean, look, I wanted to believe that. Like, I've actually tested it. I was lazy sometimes. I just send the offer in a lazy way, not emotionally resonating with people. It's just like, here's the offer, go buy it, and they flopped. Every time I tried to cut corners and not build an emotional connection with people or add all the beats, urgency, the social proof, etc. Like, you go lazy, it doesn't sell. It's like the number of conversions of a good email doesn't compare to just an email where you slap a design and then the offer and that's it. Yes, I mean, it goes to say that if you send the same email with a different offer, the email with a better offer will work. The offer is driving conversions, right? Like a bad offer, you can't sugarcoat it enough to get people to buy a bad offer, right? But
Yeah.
if you know that the offer works, like it's a tested offer, or even a difficult offer to sell, good copywriting, good emails that resonate emotionally with people, that make them feel that we understand them and they have a need we can fulfill, they always sell a lot. Tested. And yeah, I just want to know who these people are that say just put the design in, and if they want to buy, they will buy. It sounds to me like a desperate attempt to put your hands up in the air, like, I have no clue what's working. No matter what I do, I don't get the results. Let me blame the people for that. This is kind of a
That's
desperate
exactly,
mentality.
yeah, it's exactly what it is, and it is happening across all uh, specialties really. Like you can see CRO guys that say it's okay if our work doesn't produce revenue because we're learning, right? You can see SEO guys say it's okay if we don't bring money because we're getting visitors. It's the same thing. Like I think ultimately what people want to do is distance themselves as much as possible from the responsibility of having to get results. But, and I'm saying this for posterity, for people listening, how you become great is by actually closing in the gap between your work and the results, because only if you care about the results and measure the results and try to improve the results will you actually figure out what drives them, right? It's basically what you did. You started tinkering, playing around, and you came up with discoveries that, hey, like if I do this, then this metric moves, and let's try again. Oh, it moves again, so this is a learning. But you can only build this if you keep yourself accountable for results. If you see yourself as a glorified design shop that basically produces magazine like emails that like nobody even reads because like it doesn't even render on mobile, like on their mobile, etc. It's you're basically tricking people to give you money, I think. And yeah, I think it's a big problem in our space, actually. I mean, don't get me wrong, we have great designers in my company, great designers. I really think that we have some of the best. But the reality is that much of what we do is applied psychology. Like it is as simple as that. And if you don't have an understanding of it, or if you don't even believe that it matters, then like what are you doing? You're kidding yourself.
Correct. And it makes so much sense. Distancing yourself from the actual results is a surefire way to have really short retention with clients. Again, it might sound like I'm just overhyping myself, but this is the actual reality, so I don't mind saying it. I've never been through an interview in my life. The only thing that has been selling my services so far was actually my results. Um, Ever since I started with Zoronto and Abhishek, ever since then, I'm only getting clients and new projects and referrals because people actually talk about my results with others. I remember when I joined Jordan to build Motif Digital as a 360 solution for 8 or 9 figure brands, he said something that a lot of people are saying every time, before they work with me. You're probably the best in your area that I've seen. Like, you're the best retention marketer, you're the best email marketer that I've seen, and I really want to work with you. Like, that's where it's coming from, right? Like, this is retention, and because they're getting results, we keep working together. And for me, this is the best way to retain even a customer. If the customer hires your product to get a result because they have a lot of headaches or bloating or this and that, and they want to resolve this, but you don't drive the results, no matter how brilliant your emails are, you will simply not have retention. So this is something that a lot of the retention marketers, everybody's a retention marketer nowadays, they just get totally wrong. They believe that actually just emails will do the work, or they go the opposite direction. They say, no matter what you send, emails never drive repeat purchases. And they're both wrong. Like, when I hear somebody say more emails or these emails post-purchase don't drive repeat purchases, I'm like, you're speaking about yourself. You're embarrassing yourself. You show that you don't know what you're doing, because you actually can. And I've been doing this predictably for years. At the same time, I've worked with companies, I'm not going to name anyone, but I work with companies that actually were so hyped online. And when I worked with them, I saw what happened in the back end. When I talked with customer service, I saw horror stories. And I saw that people were not actually sure if the product worked at all. And while online things were looking brilliant, cream and cherries and fluffy sheep kind of thing, when I saw the back end, I'm like, this is not good. I'm not going to be able to wave a magic wand and change their retention even in half a year. They need to change their business fundamentally, because amazing emails for a bad product mean nothing. Same thing, an amazing product, you pair it with a retention system. I'm not just saying email because it's beyond email. And you can get guaranteed retention uplift, not 5% retention up. I'm talking tens of percent of retention uplift. Significant LTV boost if you know what you're doing. Right? So yeah, the product and customer service and the experience and the brand plays a huge role. But once you have all of that in place and you see that retention is X%, now you add a retention system on top of it, and you see it increases by 30, 40%, almost instantly, because something was missing.
What are the top 3 skills or traits or characteristics that make somebody a good retention marketer?
They understand the product. Number 1, empathy. They understand, human psychology. They can connect with another human being. At the end of the day, I'm mostly sending text-based emails in a way that I'm following my mantra: write like you talk, and they will read like they listen. I want people to read the emails that we're sending and feel like somebody's actually sent them this email, maybe while being on the toilet, just texting real quick and sending a text-based email, like an informal one. So this is a part of it, empathy, and people feel close to your brand. And then understanding how to run proper experiments. I interviewed a young retention marketer today that really wanted to work with us. And I asked him questions without leading an answer. And I wanted to hear things like test, control group, incremental lift, and some specific terms in terms of data analysis. I wanted to know if this person just knows about A/B testing because they read on a blog post, or if they actually know how to get statistically significant results when running a test. So this is very important to understand how to analyze data, because when it comes to retention, things will not always be smooth. One of the brands I work with at some point, had the retention was like this, and then eventually for 2 months straight, it went down by 5%. Not a huge margin. Some people would be like, okay, whatever. But it was 2 months in a row. And we wanted to understand what changed that brought this. I had to analyze data across hundreds of thousands of customers, identify patterns, put together reasons and offers and events with results, and not just find correlation but causation. That is a lot of technical skill set that somebody needs to have in terms of data analysis to produce a significant result that will eventually lead to an action that will remedy the problem. So for me, if you don't know how to understand data, how to read numbers, if you can't, like the way that I do it, I see the numbers, the spreadsheet, and I'm like, what are you trying to tell me? I'm looking for the patterns and then an actionable insight. If they don't know how to analyze numbers and run experiments, for me, they're not retention marketers. They're just glorified email marketers. So these are the three top characteristics.
Before I let you go, I have one final question, and you can answer it in more ways than one, but I'm just curious, like out of all of the technologies that you've worked with, like external vendors, what's the one that you found most helpful, like game-changing for you, like in terms of results?
You're
not
asking for
obviously
one,
like not the ESP, but like
you're always asking for like what's the one, like there is no one. I mean, it's a synergy of tools. If you have a system in place and if you know what you're doing, basically the external service, a third-party service or provider, they are basically a cog in your machine. They are serving your plan. They're not producing life-changing results. You are producing them, but you're using the tool to achieve it, and the tool itself will not use itself. Right? It's just like somebody saying AI will change your business. I mean, no. You need to know exactly where you want to go with your business, how you will achieve change, and how to implement an amazing, brilliant piece of technology like AI to achieve that result. Right? So I wouldn't really be I'm platform agnostic. I'm easy on switching platforms if they don't produce what I want to produce or if the plan changes. Right? So overall, I'd rather not mention a specific platform, also because platforms and services and people, unfortunately, come and go. This will not be an evergreen piece of content to mention in this podcast if I mention a service and then the next year they go bust, because that's what companies do, right? But what I talked about, the principles and the approaches, they will be true 10 years from now, 20 years from now. Services come and go. So if you know what you're doing, for example, let's say you want to have a track your order kind of experience that is branded. You could use Wonderman, which is what I'm using, right? But will Wonderman be around in 3 years? We don't know. Statistically speaking, most companies fold within 3 years, right? So Wonderman or any kind of Wonderman might go. Say you want to send direct mail, it could be Postpilot, Paper Run, or any other service in between. Will they be around in 3 years? We don't know. So I can't really recommend a specific service. What I recommend is know what your plan is, what your goal is, what your test is. See if you can achieve it with your existing stack. Don't just, masturbate with more and more services just for the sake of saying I'm using 1,000 services. Like, this is eating up your margins and making things slow. So know where you're going, what you want to achieve, what the goal is, what the experiment is. See what you need to achieve it, if you can do it with your existing technology. If not, then onboard a service, use it to run the experiment, and then see if it's scalable. Right now, I'm working with some amazing vendors that have unlocked have provided solutions to some problems, but they're not scalable. I can't scale them in a way where the time that I spend managing these services can actually produce results that will increase LTV, right? So they do solve the problem, but they're not scalable. If they're not scalable, they might as well I might as well get rid of them. So paying the fee will actually produce maybe better results just because you're paying less. So overall, I'm not a fan of being, following tools and being just faithful to tools themselves.
Thank you so much for taking the time. It was very insightful to speak to you today, Tommy, and I'll see you around in the retention space.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. It was a great chat. Thanks so much.